Having a fun watch in my collection is becoming more and more important to me. Having that one watch that is there that I look at and it just makes me smile. It almost makes me feel like I'm a child looking at something that really excites me. But finding a fun watch that is fun, but also very wearable, that's affordable, and that is well made can be a little bit of a challenge. Today's watch that I'm going to share with you definitely ticks all those boxes, and possibly a few more. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches, and I'm talking about the Spinnaker Phantom. When this watch was released in the limited numbers, I got really excited and I thought, I think I really want to own one of those, but I waited too long. I thought about it, and by the time I actually thought, yes, I definitely want one, well, they were all sold out. Spinnaker obviously knew that it was a popular model, so they did another run of these watches. So I definitely would have bought one if I'd known that they were doing another run of these watches. By the time I found out that they did a second run, they had already sold out as well. So I felt a little bit disappointed, but I sort of moved on. That wasn't until I saw a video released from Long Island Watch by Mark, and he was talking about this particular watch. And he mentioned that Spinnaker had a wait list now. They had a wait list that you could put your name onto and put it there, and just in case some of the watches that they had sold ended up being cancelled. Some of those orders of those watches had been cancelled. And I thought, well, I do want one of these watches. I do really like one of these watches. I'll stick my name on that wait list. I didn't actually expect to hear back from them. I thought, well, if there are some watches that are not sold, I'm unlikely to be high enough on that list to get that message from them. But 2 weeks ago, that's exactly what happened. I got the email from Spinnaker saying, one of these watches has become available. Do you still want it? And I replied straight away, I said, yes, please. And I also want the bracelet. So today is just my first impressions. I've had this a couple of days. I've been looking at it. I've been thinking about it. And I've written down a few things that have really stood out to me. And I'm going to share those things with you right now. Well, the Spinnaker Phantom Mist has arrived, and I'm so excited about this one because it's not one that I expected to be able to be picked up, as I've mentioned. And as you can see, I bought this one on the bracelet, but it doesn't actually originally come with the bracelet. That's an optional extra. It does come with this blue leather strap and this blue rubber strap here. Got a hang tag giving us our specific reference number for this particular watch. But when this particular watch arrived, after fitting this bracelet, I have to say there were 6 things that really stood out to me. The first of which is just how 3D that dial is. Obviously we've got those ghosts and those indices there, but I didn't realize there'd be so many levels and how much they would stick up. And behind that, there is like a granulated surface, which really does sort of give this sort of an interesting textured dial, different levels of dials, as well as obviously a very interesting and fun dial. The second thing is just how thin this watch is, and it's not a particularly thin watch. This is sort of a dive style watch, I think it's got 150 meters of water resistance, but it's because it's a Spinnaker, and I've experienced a couple of Spinnakers before and they've been quite chunky. So I kind of expected this one to be a bit chunky. Instead, it's just more exactly what it probably should be for this style watch. The third thing was when I turned off the lights and I looked at those ghosts, both front and the back of this one, because the lume on this watch is a showstopper and really is probably one of the main reasons why I even considered getting this particular one. The fourth thing is actually the bracelet. As I mentioned, the bracelet doesn't come specifically with it. You get those 2 straps, but I wanted the bracelet because I think it looks good on the bracelet, but it's probably not quite as good as I'd hoped. It's a good bracelet. It's reasonable, it's fine, and probably at the price range of the additional cost of the bracelet, it's probably perfectly fine. But it just feels a tiny little bit sharp here and there. The clasp itself just feels a tiny little bit sharp. It is milled, however, so I'm not complaining about it, but I was just hoping it would just be a tiny little bit better, but perhaps I'm just being a little bit picky there. Now, one thing I hadn't thought about with this particular watch, and I probably should have thought about with this particular watch, is legibility. So the fifth thing that really stood out to me is that I have no idea what the time is. Well, you can see what the time is, but because there is so much going on with this particular dial, it does affect the legibility of it. But then again, I didn't buy this watch to be the most legible watch. I bought it to be fun and interesting. So yes, it is not particularly legible, and it's worthwhile keeping that in mind. But the sixth thing actually didn't stand out to me until I started wearing this watch and started putting it onto my wrist, and that is just how wearable and how comfortable it is. Partly because of the shape of the case, and even though it is a rather large watch, I think it's a 43mm, which was a little bit of a concern for me. I knew it'd fit, but I thought it just still felt like a big watch, but it just feels really comfortable. And that bracelet really does help to balance that weight of the watch head out as well. So it is very wearable. So very nice from that particular perspective. And as you can see, yeah, it sort of really shapes down onto my wrist. Now, as always, with these watches, in these first impressions, it's something that I just wanted to show you the first things that really stood out to me as soon as I was able to get this watch in hand and on wrist. I'm now going to wear this one a fair amount because it does look like a fun and interesting and comfortable watch to wear. And after I've done that for some time, 4 to 6 weeks from now, I'll come back to you and do a full in-depth review. Thanks for watching, guys. Maybe check these 2 videos out next.